Okay. So once again, welcome everyone to our last session in April. And trust me, we'll have more webinars coming in May, and starting from Monday, which is Champagne Masterclass. And then we are planning to have weekly mini masterclass, in May. So we hope that some of you will be able to join us. And so today, and we're very happy to invite Chantal Serrano, who is the Prestige Account Manager for Spirit Cartel, and which is specialist for selling spirits. Okay, so so she will be sharing with us a lot of different experiences she had, especially that she's coming from a very strong background in finance, and then jumped the career, completely changed career to wine first of all, and then move on to spirits sales. So over to you, Chantal. Tell us a little bit about Spirits Cartel, and then probably a little bit about yourself, your background. Over to you.
Yes, well, thank you, Leona, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for all the people who we have today on the call. So yeah, I work for Spirit Cartel. Spirit Cartel is a small entity. We're a small importer and distributor of spirits. We're part of Bergman Wine Cellars, so that we're the little sister of Bergman Wine Cellars, and it's a very interesting organization, because we are currently, we've increased. When I joined Spirit Cartel like almost 2 years ago, we're only like 5 people. Now we've doubled the team, we're 10 people, and but we still act a bit like our structure is a bit more like a startup, but we are able to do that because we're getting all the benefit from some shared services, like the distribution, like the finance, like the accounting, the buying, etc., from Bergman Wine Cellars. But it's a very amazing company. Like I said, we're small. We specialize in, we try to get sort of the best of the small companies that sell spirits. So we usually, because Bergman Wine Cellars is a family company, we also try to always get agencies or producers that are also family owned or very small to us. And that's what we've also done in Spirit Cartel. So most of our brands will have, some of them are very well known, like Mancino, for instance, Vermouth, that have a very big visibility globally, because they're the sponsors of the 50 best bars worldwide. But yet it's still only, Vermouth, Mancino Vermouth is only managed by 4 people, right? So we still try to align to those kind of small niche products, and we try to compete with the big brands, but we're there and we're quite happy. So
okay. And how about yourself? Would you like to tell us about yourself, your background, and then
my background? Yeah. So I'm originally from Mexico City. I was born and raised in Mexico City. I'm half French as well from my mom's side. And I studied in Mexico. I did studies in business administration. And I started working as sort of a cost accountant, doing a lot of, like Leona was saying, a lot of finance, conducting lots of budgets. I worked for like 15 years in different blue chip companies in different sectors, in pharmaceuticals, in banking, but as well in stainless steel, so hard companies. And then one day, I've always been passionate about wine. And then when I moved to Europe, I started to get more interested in wine. And I started to get I'm also very passionate about cycling. So I used to travel to different regions in France during the summer for like 2 weeks, cycling across different wine regions. For instance, the Rhone Valley, the Jura, etc., etc. So cycling through there gave me the opportunity as well to start learning a bit more about wine. And so I started doing a few courses here and there about wine. And there was 1 year where I started to get a bit fed up of my work, my finance work. Was just dealing a lot with Excel spreadsheets, dealing a lot with PowerPoints. And 1 year I started to thinking about retraining and doing something different. And I did, I don't know how many courses over the weekend. I did baking, how to make a bread, photography. I even did a course on wood furniture making. And one of my friends told me, well, you're really interested into wine. Why don't you try to do a bit of wine? And then I started researching and I was like, maybe I could even open my own business about around wine. And that's where I stumbled with the idea that maybe I could become a private sommelier. And I stumbled and so I started looking on the internet, and I started to look for courses on sommelier or sommelierie, and I found the UK Sommelier Association, which is headed by Andrea Rinaldi, and I decided to enroll in the course, and I think it's been one of the best courses that I've ever had, because it was a very complete course, not only on wines, very strong on Italian wines, but also they always made an emphasis that to be a good sommelier, you also had to have a good knowledge on spirits, and so I did it, and that's how I was able to jump into the industry. I started, and it also was also a good base because most of the teachers were sommeliers themselves, so it was a very good way to expand my network, and that helped me get my first job as a sommelier. Of course, I started like a junior sommelier, very, very basic, filling up ice buckets, doing a lot of washing of glasses, polishing glasses, filling up the fridges in the evening. So doing all the hard work that you could imagine. At the same time, it allowed me to learn a lot about the service, hospitality, and I really, really fell in love with that industry. And then gradually, I started growing into the role, changed to different restaurants. My focus was mostly fine dining, Michelin star restaurants. And because of my background, especially in I was good in Excel, etc., naturally, a lot of my managers started inviting me to do the stock takes, for instance, and to do the reconciliations of the stock takes, and to updating all the wine lists, etc., etc. So gradually I got into more sort of that kind of responsibilities, to the point where in my last job, where I was at Tamarind of Mayfair, I was the head sommelier of the team. And also I had the opportunity to have a very good manager, Kim, when I was in Skylon, who asked me very early in my career to help, because in Skylon, I don't know if you know, there's two restaurants, there's a fine dining and the brasserie. I was a sommelier of the brasserie, to help train the staff. So every time at the briefing, I had to present one wine. And it was the first time I had done it, but I think what helped is a bit like when Georgia was explaining, I had also some transferable skills, which was presentation skills, etc. That helped me, and I was able to do it, and I really enjoyed it. And then throughout the different roles that I started getting through and different restaurants, I ended up as well being the sort of appointed trainer for the staff, for our front staff. And that's how I transitioned into Berkman Wine Cellars. There was a good opportunity. I was looking for something a bit different, something that didn't require, maybe it's not that I was not enjoying the fact of having that contact with the customers. That's something I've always enjoyed a lot, that sometimes I still miss. As a sommelier, you learn a lot. But also, I think what I wanted was something where I could have more social hours in my day life. I was at one point, most of the time, because of my responsibilities, I had to do all the closing of the restaurant, sometimes finishing at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, having to work over weekends, etc. And I wanted something a bit different, but that would not take me away from hospitality. I really wanted to stay in hospitality, and there was the opportunity to work at Berkman Wine Cellars as one of the wine educators for their small company sister, which is called Veraison, that they do all the trainings for Berkman Wine Cellars, and that's what I did. I did it for almost like a year or something. That's where I met Leon as well. It was a great experience, and that's where I remember we did a few courses, small courses for the staff, and the first course we did was around spirits. And Funny enough, I enjoyed the Verizon. Another great experience as well, because it wasn't just about education. It wasn't just about wines, teaching about wines, teaching about regions, but it was as well very commercial. I had to go and speak to the accounts and try to understand what were their needs, right? I was acting more like a consultant. It wasn't just telling them, oh, well, I have these different courses, just take them. It's just, okay, what do you want to achieve with that? And that helped me with my next role, which is the one I'm currently doing, which is the prestige account manager. So I'm on sales now. I was able, because of that experience of having worked in hospitality, having worked in fine dining, having worked in Verizon, very commercial, I was able to do that jump into Spirit Cartel, into sales. And it's been really amazing, really a lot of work as well. I spend, sometimes my days are long as 10, 12 hours, but I do have more of a social life than I had previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, so having working in both industries, saying that the wine and then jumping to spirits, what are the differences that you notice? What are the challenges you are facing currently working in the spirits industry? In terms of like strategy, or in terms of talking to people, trying to sell them spirits, would you use different tone and manners when you approach them?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because a lot of the people who work in spirits, their background will be more from bars. A lot of them would have already worked in bars, would have worked as bartenders, etc. For me, making that jump was a bit, I enjoyed it, but a lot of people were a bit hesitant that I was doing that jump, that maybe I would not adapt. And what really helped me was the fact that I had worked in hospitality, and that's something that a lot of my customers appreciated, that I could somehow understand some of the challenges that we're facing. And those challenges were around costs, was around revenues, how to increase that revenue. So some of my discussion sometimes with my customers is like, how can we position a certain product, or how can we help them to increase their sales? And that's something that my experience as a sommelier has helped a lot. What has helped a lot as well is because, as a sommelier, and because of certain restaurants where I worked, the level of expectation was quite high. And I'm sure Andrea will agree with me. You had to constantly study a lot about the wine regions, about the products you wear. Some of my customers, I remember in Tamarine, they had their own wine cellars, and they were collectors and investors in fine wine. If I didn't know about certain vintages or certain regions like Burgundy or Bordeaux, I was not doing my job properly. And that has pushed me a lot to really continuously increasing my knowledge. And that has helped me as well in my current role, because not having that experience of a mixologist or a bartender, etc., I can't really help my customers with any recipes or explaining. So there's a limit, but where I can help them is like, I study very clearly, and I've been pushing myself, and I continue to push myself a lot on the different categories. So being more of an expert on, for instance, on agave products, to the point where I'm more or less the brand ambassador of one of our brands of tequila, right? So it's pushing myself all the time to be that. And that has helped, because whenever I have some conversations with some of my customers, they will discuss whether it's a new menu or a new project that they have. And because of that expertise and that knowledge around costing and the challenges that they face, I'm able to talk about them. I think one of the interesting thing about the bars or the spirits that I enjoy is that it's very dynamic, and currently it's changing a lot. You see new trends. You see, like I was mentioning, agave, you have a lot of mezcal. There's a new trend of a single American malt, for instance. That's quite interesting. Rum is coming a little bit. So it's a little bit more dynamic, I think, than the wine industry, or something that they're more willing even to experience new drinks in the spirits, whereas in the wine industry, even when you see the emergence of new wines like natural wines or orange wines, sometimes certain sommeliers or certain wine connoisseurs are not that open. Whereas I see it differently in the spirits, a bit more dynamic, more willing to experience, more able to play with the flavors, and so that's what I would see those differences and similarities.
Okay, great. So then you touch upon a little bit about the trends now you observe in spirits. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit? You know, from the currently, if you want to speak to anyone in the market, any restaurants who want to stock new spirits, you know, what's the angle? What kind of things that you can show that you are knowledgeable about spirits, you know the trends? What would you say to them?
I think there's a general trend for more sort of better quality and even more like craft spirits. They're trying to look for more like unique products in a way. A lot of them, there's still a big presence of the main brands and major brands of spirits, but I do see there's a trend from the customers, but also from the consumers and from my customers, of trying to find something a bit more different, where there's a different vermouth, where there's a different tequila, where there's something that has a bit more authenticity or maybe a bit of different story that they can help themselves sell. And that would be, I think, a similarity that I found with the wine world and being a sommelier. Something that always my customers, when I was a sommelier, enjoyed a lot was being able to give them a bit of the history or the story of the wine. And that's something that I feel is coming as well in certain of my clients, which is prestige is going to be most of the top 50 bars, some members clubs, private member clubs, is going to be Michelin star restaurants as well, etc. So they like, because maybe of the style of the venue, they like as well to have something, a story or a product where they can sort of talk to. And right now, there's a craze, I think, on agave and tequila and mezcal. Loads of people are talking about it, which is good. And in some ways, but it's still growing, right? I think that's where I would see the most trends. Like I was saying, rum is sort of doing a comeback. Although rum, they've been saying that for maybe the last 10 years, is doing a comeback. It's funny enough, gin is still there. I've been waiting for gin a bit to die down. Sorry, George, I do love gin, but it's sometimes you wonder how many brands of gins are out there and what is the difference between each of them. And even myself, I get lost a little bit. But that's how I would see it. I don't know if Georgia or somebody else would like to add anything about trends or.
Yeah, probably probably later on we can have a little discussion at the end as well. And I think you mentioned something already about, I mean, one of my questions is about how the key to be top sales in spirits, because I know you're one of the top amongst your team members. And if you need to say that 3 top tips of becoming a top sales in spirits, what would be the 3? Or if it's more than 3?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think first of all, you have to know your product and your category. Otherwise, and even know your competitors. I always tend to even buy mini bottles of my competitors to sort of understand, okay, what is it that it's so popular? What makes it interesting? Is it because it's more approachable? Is it something, the flavor? Is it, what is it that it is? So I can sort of understand as well the positioning of the product. The second one is a lot of preparation. You have to, and we're lucky that today there's internet, and most of the bars or most of the venues will have their wine list or their cocktail list online. So usually I would go there and I would start there. So I would start to understand what kind of products do they have, what is the image that they want to portray. And then I would go myself to the bar and have a drink or even have a coffee before I introduce myself. So it's a lot of preparation to understand how you can, because it's not just coming and saying, oh, take my product and it's the best product, but it's understanding what is your added value and how can you help them in a way. So it's understanding them, and then a lot of it is persistence and continuing. I mean, there's some statistics that a few people say that you need between 12 to 15 contacts before you make a sale, and those contacts can be physical visits to the venue, so talking to the contact that you have. It can be through chasing them over the phone, chasing them through email, etc., etc. So imagine if you don't have that sort of focus and determination to get there, then you will not be a good salesperson. I think then the sales will eventually come, but you have to be persistent. You have to be there continuously chasing them. And then sometimes a lot of people will tell you not interested for the moment because maybe they've already updated their cocktail list. Maybe they're not interested in the moment of expanding their spirits choice. Maybe they're already in a contract with another provider, another big group. So you have to wait until that expires to go there. So there's many reasons why. Maybe sometimes it's just the head bartender that is not interested in your product, and you just have to wait for that bartender to move, and so you go back and visit them. But a lot of it is that persistence, preparation on your own products, your own categories, but also understanding the other ones and asking loads of questions. When you're in front of your customer, always ask loads of questions and listen to what they have to tell you.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so then the next question, well, I've got just two questions, and before I open it to everyone. So this is the question I always ask. What is your normal day? Is there a normal day for you? I mean,
that's a good question.
Before lockdown, of course.
before lockdown, right? Because post-lockdown, I think
yeah.
it's good. It will be very easy. Pre-lockdown, usually I would get up and start my day around 8 and 9 in the morning from home. I would start either doing some follow-ups by email of my previous evening, for instance, if I'd had any meetings or if I had any cold calls, I would follow up with that. Chasing as well of emails, maybe if I had any issues with of any deliveries, etc., then I had to maybe call the our Bergman to check, like, my customers complaining about this, whatever, and then usually I started doing some visits around 10, 11, before the start of the shift, and then I would stop, and then from 3 in the afternoon I would continue doing some cold calls, etc. And then it would all depend on the day that I would have. I would do some, because I would do as well some of the training. So depending on how I had scheduled the training, I would do that day a special training, either on one of our products or sort of a masterclass as well. Depending as well, we might usually have some brands that come and visit us. So we'll do some trade visits with them. Perhaps in the evening, I will end up having to host them as well, like go for dinner for them or go for some drinks with them. Sometimes if I had some sort of special event or activation that I agreed with a certain venue, then I would have to go to that special event. So it will depend on different things, but not every day was the same. Perhaps the first part of the day was similar, checking on email, chasing people. If I needed some new samples, I would go to get the samples, etc. The second part, usually in the afternoon, it will all depend on who am I going to visit, what I had agreed, if I had some appointments or not. If I don't have appointments, usually what I would do, I would end up having some cold calls. So basically going to different venues and then presenting myself and introducing myself and trying to get some information from that. So that's what I like. And then something, I know these series have been about how to get into these and about careers. If anything, I would say, any advice I would say to any person who's interested in trying to get into sales is also understand the structure of the company you want to go to, or you're interviewing with. It's a completely different my job compared to one of the big brands, where you have a very more structured setup, where maybe they will only give you certain areas geographically. When I started, I was only given sort of a high level. This is what you need to do. You need to target private members clubs. You need to target as well prestige retail like Selfridges, etc. So they gave me a sort of a nature, sort of an idea of which venues I needed to target. But then it was up to me to define which were the clients, which were the areas. Because of that, most of them will be mostly concentrated in Mayfair, South Kensington, Chelsea, etc. But I cover all of the London. So sometimes I have to go to Canary Wharf, sometimes I have to go to Shoreditch, to Soho. So I'm all the time moving around. And that's something that you have to know as well, how that would be good. And that's something as well that, like I was saying earlier, the structure, Spirit Cartel is a bit like a startup. I end up touching on different topics, right? So I work a lot with our marketing manager on activations for my own customers. David, who's our manager, David Hood, usually he's the one who chooses which products to bring, but he will also make sure that all the team sort of understands and appreciates the drink before making his final decision. So if any one of us would say, well, we don't like it because of X, Y, Z reason, or we have some reservations because we don't think it will sell properly, or we don't have the capacity to sell it, then he would make that decision based on that, right? So you end up touching on different things that maybe if you're in a bigger structure, you might not end up having that opportunity.
Yeah.
So that would be a bit of good advice, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the last question from me. So you touched upon already, what you need as a person, but then about qualification. I mean, you start from a wine background, but then for anyone who hasn't got this sommelier background and all that, if they wanted to, like a blank piece of paper, they want to get into spirit sales, then what's your advice to them in terms of should they go and get some experiences working in the bar, or is there a kind of like qualification they can go to in terms of like learning about spirits?
I think they should do both. I think that some foundation education is basic for me, and it helped me a lot. I don't think I would have even been able to start in any restaurant as a commis sommelier, even if I didn't have, if I didn't even prove that I had some interest or had some knowledge about wines. You need it. Of course, I noticed a difference immediately when I started working, and when I started properly working as a sommelier, your knowledge increases so much. But I think I would recommend you should have foundation, because in parallel to my different experiences, I also did my level 2, my level 3 WSET. I'm currently about to finish my diploma as well on WSET. So I try to do different things, right? And I'm currently doing a course online at the Open University about the science of alcohol, where they teach you a lot about distillation and isomers, etc.
Yeah.
So you constantly, I think, will help. And if you want to start in spirits, I would strongly recommend that you do even the basic level 1 spirits of WSET. Not only would help you with a bit of knowledge and understanding, and you will have a bit more the confidence to go and interview, but also what helped me as well, like I said earlier, was the network. I wouldn't have been able either to apply to any of those jobs, even for my first job, had I not had that network of people who were helping me. Because a lot of like I said, the teachers and Rinaldi as well, they were like telling me, oh yeah, I heard of an opportunity, this restaurant or this hotel or these places, they're looking, just go and interview them and hear the contacts. I think you need that network. Of course, you can then, there's some sites where you can look for jobs, like the Caterer, for instance. There's different places, or even in certain groups like Soho Group or even D&D, they will have their own jobs advertised online. But for me, it was a network. So if I would do a recommendation, it would be both. And also, don't be, I think it was Georgia who mentioned when she earlier this week, also be patient. and when you start. Um, I was as well frustrated at the very beginning when I was just doing all the filling up of the ice buckets and then emptying the ice buckets and polishing them and finishing and all of that. And you want to grow quick, but you have to be patient. You have to start from the bottom. And that will help you as well understand how all the different layers and how you can. And then I think if you're as well with a good manager, they will eventually, and you have to as well to shout in a way. You have to ask for things. The opportunity at Spirit Cartel, I was all the time asking, hey, I'm here, right? I'm interested in spirits. I want to do a change in spirits. And then the opportunity came and they knew I wanted, so they offered it to me to apply for the job. They did not offer me the job. I applied. But so yeah, I think to go back to your question, I think it's always helpful to have a foundation education. Either he can be as well, there's some different schools like the European Bar School or something like that. They offer sometimes online courses on how to make basic cocktails, and it's not that expensive. It's like, I think like 60 quid or something like that. And you just do it online, but at least you sort of learn to understand what you have to be a bartender, for instance.
Yeah. And just for your information, WineEd do offer WSET online level 1 and level 2 in spirits.
In spirits, there you go.
Yeah. So enough from me asking questions. And then while Chantal has covered extensively about a lot of things, I wonder if there's anyone who has got any questions we wanted to share. Okay, Georgia. Let me.
Hi, Chantal, that was wonderful. It's been lovely getting to know you a bit better. Thank you for that. I want to know, what do you think has been your biggest disappointment since, like in terms of your career? And to finish on a positive, what has been your biggest accomplishment, conversely? Biggest disappointment and biggest accomplishment.
I think I'll start with the biggest accomplishment. For me, the biggest accomplishment was moving from a finance position into sommelier, because it was a complete change of life. I was all the time in an office, in front of a computer, etc., etc. But then finding yourself, like when you, I don't know, for me, that was a great accomplishment. I still cannot believe I was able to make it, right? To be there and to be like, oh my God. And because at the very beginning, I didn't even know how to even, how to say, carry some glasses, right? I was breaking them, and I was at one point even just carrying 2 glasses because I was afraid I was gonna drop them. And to see what I was able to accomplish, I was like, wow. And I'm really happy I did it. I'm much more happier than what I was doing. And one of my biggest disappointments, I think, is when I started at Spirit Cartel. I was one of my potential customers, one of my prospects. I was super happy. I was like convincing them. I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna get the house pour. It was like 3,000 bottles or something of tequila. I was like, yeah. And then it turned out I was talking to the wrong person, right? And that was the first lesson. Because I was spending months on talking to that, and I was just talking to the head bartender, whereas I had to talk to the general manager. So when it came to talk to the general manager, he was like, oh, well, I've resigned with XY. Sorry, you can't, right? And that I was so disappointed because I was just like,
how did you overcome this?
I mean, he's almost my best friend, the head bartender, right? And then that's another lesson you learn, that you have to talk to the right people.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I know Michele has got a question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for what you're doing. And Chantal, we actually met the first time. I believe it's the only person in London, and she managed to meet my mom as well.
Yes.
Because we were in the Brucebury Club. You offered me a shot on amazing cognac.
Yes.
Anyway, my question was, because your background, because you're actually from Mexico, there is an equivalent of the CRT tequila course that you can do here in London that you recommend, and the distillation course that you were that you're actually doing online. I would be interested to know which one is it as well. But the question for you is, do you have actually a standard? Well, it's more like a procedure than you recommend, not for the company, actually you personal, to follow up to the customer without overstressing them?
Oh, yeah, that's very good question. Yeah, you always have to find the right balance that they don't feel you're harassing them, but you're actually harassing them. Well, usually I try to, and that's where I say you have to be very focused and persistent. I would maybe wait a couple of weeks. So let's say we met today, I will wait a couple of weeks before I send you a reminder, and maybe I will send you a little bit of information. And sometimes what I also try to do, I try not to be so focused on the point that I'm discussing, or at the point that we discussed, which is the listing of something. I might even just send them 2 weeks after that, just to tell them, oh, by the way, we got a new rum. Just, I'll let you know, blah, blah, blah. Or I have an event here. I'm doing a cocktail preparation or whatever with one of our brand ambassadors. Would you like to come, right? So I try to get them interested in different ways without just all the time talking about what you want to talk about. That's what I do. And sometimes I even go to the bar and I will just go, well, I'm just passing around. Right? I'm not doing anything. I was here and can I have a drink? Let's try, and then start maybe the conversation. So I try to be a bit like that, because otherwise, yeah, you don't want to look as you're being, like I said, chasing them and then harassing them when you actually do, right? I hope it helps my.
No, definitely. Thank you.
I know that
it's a bit of a shame, because I think they used to have courses, but they stopped them a few years ago. So now the only certification is in Mexico. I've been trying to look for myself as well.
Yeah.
But it's in Mexico. If I know of anything, I will let you know. And then the course I'm doing is called the Science of Alcohol in Open University. So I can send you later all the details if you want, Michele.
That would be great. Yeah, appreciate it.
And it's for free. That's a nice thing. It's for free. And they even teach you how to make your own beer. So if you're interested in doing your own beer, you can as well.
Science of Alcohol from which university?
Open University.
Open University. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's great. Anyone else before we say goodbye? And once again, I mean, Chantal is also on LinkedIn as well. So if anyone wanted to contact her, you'll be easily, able to find her. And Andrea,
on Instagram.
Sorry.
One last question. Do you miss working in the restaurant?
No. No, I do miss the contact with the customers. That's hospitality, especially with those customers that they entirely that's always fulfilled me a lot. But cleaning the restaurant, doing the stock take, no, my God. No. I hated that. Oh, no, you had to do it, right? But no, having to, no. And do you miss it on your side?
Sometimes I do, but to be honest with you, I'm not looking back. Yeah, no.
No.
I had fun. I did what I had to do, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. I that's it.
Okay. And that's great. I think, Claudio, you're asking about the question, and I hope you got the answer now. It's Science of Alcohol from Open University.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So anyone for any more? Okay, So I hope everyone finds it very useful, and then thank you very much for participating in the session. And then we'll certainly share more about our master classes in the coming weeks, and hopefully we can see you again virtually. So thank you again for Chantal for your time and for your.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone for being here.
All right. Okay. So
and maybe see you soon in a bar or something, sharing a drink. I hope.
Yeah. All right, so thank you all and have a lovely afternoon. Okay, bye.
Bye.